Welcome to an auditory experience dedicated to exploration and self-discovery. Before we dive in, if this audiobook resonates with you and you value this content, we extend an invitation to support our work and join our community. We would love for you to leave a comment to tell us where you're listening from, to give us a like, and to consider subscribing for future explorations of wisdom. Now, prepare to relax your mind and open yourself to an inner journey, where ancient wisdom meets the shadows of your own imagination. This audiobook is designed to accompany you on a deep immersion. In a world that constantly pushes us to do more, to strive ceaselessly, to fight for every achievement, and to feel the pressure of uninterrupted productivity, the idea of achieving everything without effort might sound like a fantasy, an unattainable utopia, or worse still, a justification for laziness. However, what you are about to discover is neither a fantasy nor an excuse, but one of the deepest and most liberating truths of ancient Eastern wisdom, the secret of Wu Wei. Wu Wei is a central concept of Taoism, a mystical and practical philosophy that flourished in ancient China, attributed primarily to the enigmatic sage Lao Tzu. His seminal work, the Tao Te Ching, is a concise yet infinitely profound text that has influenced countless generations with its vision of how to live in harmony with the universe. Lao Tzu, whose name is often translated as Old Master, is a semi-legendary figure whose exact existence is debated, but whose wisdom endures with unparalleled force. It is said that he was a contemporary of Confucius, and that his philosophy emerged as an alternative or complement to the more rigid social and ethical structures promoted in his time. Unlike many Western philosophies that often emphasize direct action, control, confrontation, and the imposition of human will over nature, Taoism and Wu Wei propose a different path. A path that does not seek to dominate but to flow. It does not seek to force but to allow. It does not seek to fight but to align. It is the mastery that arises not from brute force, but from subtle intelligence, adaptability, and a deep understanding of the natural rhythms of existence. Think of nature. A river does not try hard to reach the sea. It simply flows, bypassing obstacles, finding the path of least resistance, and over time, it erodes the hardest rocks. A plant does not try hard to grow. It simply absorbs nutrients, sunlight, and water, and its growth arises organically from its own essence. These are examples of Wu Wei in action. It is not inactivity, but an action that is so perfectly aligned with the natural flow of things that it appears effortless. In our modern society, we often confuse effort with progress. We believe that the more we sweat, the more we struggle, the more we stress, the better the results will be. We have conditioned ourselves to believe that life is a constant battle that must be won at all costs. However, this struggle mindset often leaves us exhausted, anxious, and disconnected from our own vitality. Wu Wei invites us to question this premise. It suggests that there is a smarter, more effective, and paradoxically more powerful way to achieve our goals and live a full life. This audiobook, Lao Tzu, The Art of Achieving Everything Without Effort, Wu Wei, is an invitation to explore this profound paradox. Throughout the following chapters, we will unravel the real meaning of Wu Wei and discover how to apply it in every aspect of our lives. You will learn to demystify non-doing. You will understand that Wu Wei is not laziness or inaction, but a form of intelligent and harmonious action that aligns with the natural flow of things. Learn from the wisdom of water. We will use the metaphor of water to understand flexibility, gentle persistence, and adaptability as keys to overcoming obstacles. Adopt the gardener's mindset. You will see how cultivating the right conditions and trusting the natural process is more effective than trying to force growth. Apply Wu Wei in daily life. We will explore practical examples in work, relationships, decision-making, and creativity, showing how effectiveness can arise without apparent effort. Let go of control. You will discover how trust in the Tao, and detachment from outcomes are acts of power that free you from anxiety. Leverage the utility of emptiness. You will understand how creating space and silence can enhance clarity, intuition, and creativity. Integrate Wu Wei into personal development. You will see how this philosophy leads to greater authenticity, stress reduction, and an increase in vitality. Avoid the misunderstandings and pitfalls of Wu Wei. We will distinguish true, effortless action from irresponsible passivity. This audiobook is more than a simple explanation of an ancient concept. It is a practical guide to transforming your approach to life. By immersing yourself in the teachings of Lao Tzu and the Tao, you will not only understand Wu Wei intellectually, but you will learn to feel it, practice it, and integrate it into your being. Prepare for a profound reorientation of how you perceive effort, control, and achievement. Prepare to discover the art of achieving everything without effort. Chapter 1. What is Wu Wei really? Demystifying non-doing. We've glimpsed the intriguing promise of Wu Wei, the art of achieving everything without effort. However, for many, this idea can lead to confusion or even skepticism. Does it mean we should just sit back and wait for things to happen on their own? Is it an invitation to laziness or irresponsibility? Lao Tzu and Taoism are emphatic. Absolutely not. To truly understand Wu Wei, we must shed our Western preconceptions about action, control, and productivity and open ourselves to a radically different way of being and doing. The most common and often misleading translation of Wu Wei is non-doing. This literal interpretation is the root of many misunderstandings. A more precise translation that captures the essence of the concept would be action without forced effort, action without unnatural effort, or action aligned with the natural flow of things. It is not the absence of action, but the absence of action that goes against the current, that fights against reality, or that imposes a rigid will on the natural process. Let's imagine the difference between a swimmer who jumps into a river and desperately fights against the current, quickly exhausting themselves and barely moving forward, and another swimmer who lets themselves be carried by the current, using their energy to propel themselves in the desired direction, flowing with the water instead of fighting against it. Both are doing something, they are in motion, but one does so with useless and exhausting effort, while the other does so with an effectiveness that seems effortless. The second swimmer is an example of Wu Wei. Wu Wei is the action that arises from alignment. It is acting in harmony with the Tao, which can be understood as the way or the natural order of the universe. The Tao is the underlying force that governs the cosmos, the inherent intelligence that allows everything to function without apparent effort. When our actions align with this natural flow, they become incredibly powerful and efficient because we are not expending energy in resistance. Distinction between Wu Wei and passivity, laziness. It is crucial to understand that Wu Wei is not synonymous with inaction. It does not mean sitting on the couch waiting for problems to solve themselves or for opportunities to fall from the sky. Taoism is a deeply practical philosophy that seeks effectiveness in life. Passivity. It is not an apathetic resignation to circumstances. On the contrary, it is a highly conscious and strategic form of action. Laziness. A lazy person avoids action due to lack of will or energy. A person who practices Wu Wei acts, but does so in the most efficient and harmonious way possible, without superfluous effort. Irresponsibility. Wu Wei does not exempt one from responsibilities. In fact, by being more aligned and less stressed, we are more capable of fulfilling our obligations effectively. The key lies in the quality of the action, not in the quantity of apparent effort. Wu Wei action is that which is timely, appropriate, and arises from a state of calm and clarity, rather than tension, anxiety, or the need for control. The dangers of forced action and resistance. In contrast to Wu Wei, we have forced action or action with resistance. This is how most of us operate much of the time. It manifests when We fight against reality. We wish things were different from what they are and expend energy resisting the inevitable. For example, getting angry about traffic, regretting the past. We force results. We try to impose our will on situations or people we cannot control, generating frustration and exhaustion. We act out of anxiety. We make impulsive decisions or take actions out of fear of not achieving something, which often leads to errors and more stress. We wear ourselves out uselessly. We put a disproportionate amount of effort into tasks that could be resolved with greater intelligence and less friction. This forced action is like trying to push a door that is designed to be pulled. You can push with all your might, sweat and get frustrated, but you won't manage to open it. Instead, if you observe the door and understand its design, a simple pull without effort will open it. Wu Wei is that intuitive understanding of the design, of the flow. Analogies for understanding Wu Wei. In addition to the swimmer, let's consider other analogies. The sailboat. A sailboat doesn't fight against the wind. It adjusts its sails to take advantage of it. If the wind changes, the sailboat doesn't despair. It changes the direction of its sails to keep moving forward. It moves with the flow, not against it. The expert carpenter. A novice carpenter hits the nail with brute force, often bending it or damaging the wood. An expert carpenter hits the nail with just the right force at the correct angle with a fluid and seemingly effortless movement. The result is effective and clean. The martial artist. A martial arts master doesn't use brute force to defeat their opponent. They use the opponent's energy against them, adapt to their movements, and find the point of balance to disarm them with minimal effort. Softness overcomes hardness. In essence, Wu Wei is the action that arises from a state of mental emptiness, clarity, and intuitive alignment with the situation. It is not a rigidly planned action, but a spontaneous and fluid response to what life presents. It is the wisdom of knowing when to act and when to abstain, when to push and when to let go, when to speak and when to listen. It is the mastery of inaction that allows for the most effective action. By understanding that Wu Wei is not inactivity but a superior form of action, we begin to dismantle the limiting beliefs that have tied us to unnecessary effort and stress. This is the first step to unlocking a power and peace that reside in harmony with the natural flow of existence. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into Taoism's most powerful metaphor for understanding this flow, the wisdom of water. Chapter 2, the wisdom of water, flowing in harmony with existence. Water is the perfect embodiment of Wu Wei. Think of a river. It does not strive to reach the sea. It simply flows. It adapts to every curve of the terrain, every rock, every ravine. If an obstacle stands in its way, the water does not collide with it with brute, exhausting force. Instead, it gently flows around it, seeps through the smallest crack, or patiently erodes it over time. The strength of water does not lie in its rigidity, but in its incredible flexibility and adaptability. It is soft, it yields, it takes the shape of any container, but over time, it can carve out the hardest stone and sculpt deep canyons. This paradox of softness overcoming hardness is central to Taoism. It teaches us that true strength is not always found in direct confrontation or in the imposition of will, but in the ability to yield, to adapt, and to find the path of least resistance. Think about how we usually face problems in our lives. Often we behave like a rigid rock. When a plan doesn't go as we expect, when someone doesn't react as we wish, or when we face an unexpected change, our first reaction may be resistance. We fight against reality, we get frustrated, we get stressed, we try to force results. This rigidity is like that of a dry branch in the middle of a storm. It opposes the wind with such tenacity that eventually it breaks. On the contrary, if you observe the bamboo cane or the reed stalk in the same storm, you will see their dance. They bend gracefully before the force of the wind, sway gently and flexibly, And once the storm passes, they rise again, intact. Their ability to yield, to offer no rigid resistance, allowed them to survive and persist. The wisdom of water invites us to apply this same flexibility and persistence to our own daily reactions and decisions. Adaptability in the face of obstacles. When you face a problem or a difficult situation, instead of crashing head-on, ask yourself, how can I be like water here? What is the path of least resistance? How can I flow around this obstacle instead of trying to knock it down? Sometimes, the most effective solution is not the most direct or the most forced, but the one that adapts most intelligently to the circumstances. Gentle persistence. Water does not give up. Drop by drop, it exerts its influence. In the same way, your efforts do not need to be an explosion of brute force. Small, consistent steps, patient dedication, and sustained effort over time are much more powerful than intermittent and intense effort. Think of a long-term project. It is not achieved with a single burst of energy, but with a constant flow of actions. Non-resistance to reality. Resistance is the source of much of our suffering. Water accepts the container that holds it. It does not fight against its shape. Similarly, practicing non-resistance means accepting reality as it is in this moment, without denying the pain or difficulty, but without adding the suffering that comes from wishing reality were different. This acceptance frees an immense amount of energy that you can redirect towards constructive action in the realm of what you can control. Think about how life flows around us. Events, people, circumstances are in constant motion. If we try to cling to a rigid form, if we resist change, we will cause ourselves immense pain. The wisdom of water teaches us to flow with that change, to dance with life instead of fighting against it. The fluidity of water also teaches us about interconnectedness. A river is nourished by small streams, joins other rivers, and finally merges with the ocean. Nothing in nature exists in isolation. In the same way, our effectiveness and peace increase when we recognize our interconnectedness with the world, when we collaborate, when we move in harmony with others and with our environment, instead of trying to impose our individual will at all costs. The practice of the wisdom of water in your daily life is not an invitation to passivity. It is an invitation to conscious action, to adaptable intelligence. It is learning to move with life, to use its energy in your favor, and to discover that true mastery does not lie in the force that imposes, but in the fluidity that adapts and transforms. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into another fundamental analogy of Wu Wei, the gardener's mindset, which cultivates conditions instead of forcing growth. Chapter 3, the gardener's mindset, cultivating conditions, not forcing growth. To delve deeper into the secret of Wu Wei, Lao Tzu invites us to adopt a new perspective on action and achievement, that of the gardener's mindset. This approach contrasts drastically with the dominant mindset in our society, which we could call the machine builder's mindset. Understanding this difference is key to transforming how we approach our goals and our relationships. Think of an experienced gardener. Their goal is to cultivate a thriving garden full of life and beauty. However, a good gardener knows they cannot force a seed to sprout in a day, nor pull on a plant's leaves to make it grow faster, nor compel a flower to open before its natural time. They know that the direct imposition of their will on nature is useless and, in fact, harmful. What the wise gardener does is very different. Their power lies not in brute force, but in creating the right conditions. They meticulously prepare the soil, ensuring it has the necessary nutrients and optimal drainage. They sow seeds carefully, providing them with the correct space and depth. They provide the necessary water regularly and ensure they receive the right amount of sunlight. They protect plants from pests and weeds. And then, with patience, faith, and a deep trust in nature's inherent wisdom, they step back and let the natural growth process do its work. The gardener does not force growth, they nurture it. Their action is a collaboration with life, not an imposition on it. Their apparent non-doing is, in reality, a highly intelligent and aligned action. Now, let's contrast this with the machine builder's mindset. The machine builder operates under the premise of absolute control and imposition. They see the world, whether projects, people, or situations, as a set of inert components that must be assembled, manipulated, and forced to produce a predetermined result with millimeter precision. Their approach is linear, rigid, and based on the constant application of their will on reality, believing that force and visible effort are the only way to success. If a piece doesn't fit immediately, they force it. If a process doesn't proceed as expected, their first reaction is to apply more pressure, more supervision, more exhaustive control, more work hours, more rigid directives. This machine builder's mindset, while useful in very specific and limited contexts, like mass production or purely mechanical tasks, becomes deeply limiting, exhausting, and often counterproductive when applied to the complexity of human life. When we try to force a relationship to follow a pre-established script of happiness, when we micromanage every task of our employees to the point of stifling them and undermining their initiative, or when we try to control every aspect of our children's lives, dictating their decisions and stifling their autonomy, what is the result? Increasing tension, passive or active resistance, mutual frustration, and paradoxically, a real loss of control over what we most wish to influence. The machine builder may achieve short-term results, yes, but often at the cost of harmony, long-term sustainability, spontaneous creativity, and genuine joy. Their energy is rapidly dissipated in the constant friction of resistance and struggle. The gardener's mindset, on the contrary, embodies the spirit of Wu Wei at every step. They understand that life, like a garden, is an organic system, not a machine. And organic systems thrive when nurtured, given space to grow, and trusted in their inherent process. How to apply the gardener's mindset in your life, in your goals and projects. Instead of forcing a result, focus on cultivating the conditions for your goal to manifest. If your goal is to start a business, instead of desperately forcing sales, focus on building an exceptionally valuable product, deeply understanding your customers' needs, establishing an efficient delivery system, and building a solid reputation. These are the conditions for the business to grow organically. Success will come as a natural fruit of those conditions. If your goal is to write a book, instead of forcing every word and stressing over writer's block, focus on creating an inspiring space, thoroughly researching your topic, reading other authors, establishing a consistent, even if short, writing schedule, and taking care of your well-being. Allow ideas to flow instead of trying to squeeze out genius. In your personal relationships, relationships are like plants. They need to be nurtured, not controlled. Instead of trying to change your partner, friends, or children to fit your expectations, focus on creating the conditions for the relationship to flourish. Open communication, mutual respect, unconditional support, genuine love, space for individual growth. Allow people to be who they are and observe how the relationship grows naturally. Forcing change in others only generates resistance. If there's a conflict, instead of imposing your point of view, focus on creating the conditions for dialogue, active listening, empathy, willingness to understand, search for mutual solutions. Conflict is resolved when communication conditions are fertile. In learning and personal development, you cannot force learning or personal growth. You can only create the conducive environment. If you want to learn a new skill, instead of stressing about mastering it quickly, focus on consistent practice, finding a good teacher, genuine curiosity, allowing yourself to make mistakes, and enjoying the process. Mastery will emerge organically. In your inner growth, instead of forcing enlightenment or peace of mind, focus on practices that nurture your inner self. Meditation, self-reflection, mindfulness, time in nature. Peace and wisdom will flourish when conditions are right. In decision-making, The gardener's mindset teaches us patience and observation. Instead of making hasty decisions under pressure, focus on gathering the necessary information, reflecting calmly, listening to your intuition, and observing how circumstances unfold. Sometimes the best action is to wait for the opportune moment for the solution to mature. The wise gardener is an attentive and patient observer. They monitor conditions, detect the needs of their plants, and respond appropriately. If there's a drought, they water carefully. If there's too much rain, they ensure good drainage. They don't fight the weather or the seasons, but work with them, adapting and responding to what is. Their action is intentional, yes, but never forced. It is a vivid example of Wu Wei, an action that arises from a deep understanding of natural processes and an alignment with the inherent flow of life, allowing results to manifest organically, sustainably, and with a beauty and vitality that forced control could never replicate. By adopting the gardener's mindset, you free yourself from the pressure of having to control every outcome. You understand that your power lies not in forcing things, but in creating the optimal environment for them to flourish. You become a collaborator with life rather than a dictator. And it is in that collaboration, in that alignment with the natural flow, that you discover the art of achieving everything without effort. Chapter 4. Wu Wei in Daily Life, Effortless Effectiveness. Now, it's time to bring Wu Wei into your daily reality, demonstrating that this Taoist principle is not an abstract idea for hermits, but a powerful tool for achieving effectiveness and peace in your work, your relationships, your decisions, and your creativity. It's about how to apply the intelligence of flow in every moment. Action without forced effort, Wu Wei, manifests when your actions are so aligned with the natural rhythm of a situation that they seem to arise without friction. It is not the absence of action, but the absence of resistance and unnecessary struggle. It's the difference between pushing a rope, useless, and pulling it, effective. It's the mastery that comes from a deep understanding of how things work, and your willingness to cooperate with that functioning instead of trying to impose your will. Wu Wei in work and business. In the professional sphere, we often equate success with hard work, long hours, and constant struggle. While effort is necessary, Wu Wei invites us to redefine what effort means. Leadership that empowers. A leader who practices Wu Wei is not a micromanaging dictator. They are like the gardener who trusts their plants. This leader creates an environment where their teams have autonomy, where creativity can flourish naturally, and where problems are often solved by the collaborator's own initiative. They know when to intervene to guide and when to step back to allow the team to find its own way. Their direct non-doing, not interfering unnecessarily, allows for much more powerful and organic doing by the team. They foster fluid communication, not rigid bureaucracy. Delegating with trust. Wu Wei in delegation means assigning tasks to the right people, trusting their abilities, and giving them the freedom to find their own way to achieve the goal. It's not just about offloading tasks, it's about recognizing the flow of talent and empowering others, freeing up your own energy for higher impact strategic tasks that do require your direct attention. Finding organic solutions. When faced with a complex problem at work, instead of forcing a preconceived solution, apply Wu Wei. Observe the situation without prejudice. Listen to all parties involved. Allow ideas to flow freely, uncensored brainstorming. Sometimes the best solution emerges organically from the problem's own dynamics or from a fluid conversation, not from forced analysis. Mastering prioritization. Wu Wei helps you distinguish high-leverage tasks, those that produce the greatest results with the least aligned effort, from tasks that wear you out uselessly. Instead of making a long to-do list, focus on key actions that are aligned with purpose, freeing up time and energy by not fighting the whirlwind of less important things. Wu Wei in personal relationships. Relationships are living systems, not machines. Trying to control or force them often leads to frustration and conflict. Wu Wei offers a path to more harmonious and authentic relationships. Listen actively without imposing. Instead of listening to respond or to impose your point of view, practice active listening to truly understand the other person. Allow their thoughts and feelings to flow without interruption or judgment. This non-action of imposition allows connection and empathy to flourish. Don't force connections. Not all bonds are meant to thrive in the same way. Instead of forcing a friendship or a relationship that doesn't flow naturally, allow each relationship to find its own level and pace. Authentic friendship arises from natural affinity, not insistence. Allow autonomy. In your role as a parent, partner, or friend, Wu Wei means allowing the people you love to be who they truly are, without trying to mold them to your expectations or desires. Give them space for their autonomy and individual growth. Excessive control only generates resistance and resentment. Your influence will be more potent if it arises from trust and respect, not imposition. Resolve conflicts by flowing. When conflict arises, instead of clinging to being right, apply the flexibility of water. Seek common ground, the solution that flows for both parties. Allow the solution to emerge from dialogue, instead of trying to impose a personal victory. Wu Wei in decision-making. In a world that demands quick decisions, Wu Wei invites us to a deeper wisdom in this process. Wait for clarity, don't rush. When faced with an important decision, instead of rushing out of fear or pressure, take time to observe, gather information, reflect calmly, and allow clarity to emerge. It's like waiting for the water to settle so you can see the bottom of the river. Decisions made from serenity and clarity are more effective than those made from anxiety. Trust intuition. Wu Wei values the wisdom of intuition, that inner sense that guides you. If you have cultivated a state of calm, your intuition can offer invaluable guidance. Don't ignore it in favor of cold logic. Sometimes the solution most aligned with the natural flow is not the most obvious. Make the right decision. Gently, once clarity emerges, act decisively but without excessive tension. Wu Wei in decision-making is fluidity in execution. Wu Wei in learning and creativity. Wu Wei is the natural state for deep learning and creative expression. Learn with curiosity, not pressure. Instead of forced memorization or learning out of obligation, cultivate genuine curiosity. Allow knowledge to flow to you, exploring what interests you. When learning is joyful, it is effortless. Allow creativity to flow. Inspiration often cannot be forced. Instead of fighting writer's block or creative block, Wu Wei invites you to create the conditions for creativity to emerge. A quiet space, uninterrupted time, a relaxed mind, and a playful attitude. Allow ideas to flow freely without initial judgment. The process is as important as the result. Many artists experience Wu Wei when they are in a flow state, where creation seems to emerge through them, not just from them. Wu Wei is an invitation to observe life with greater attention, to trust its inherent flow, and to align your actions with that flow. By doing so, you will not only discover astonishing effectiveness in everything you undertake, but also a deep sense of peace, vitality, and connection with the universe. You will no longer be a solitary fighter against the tides of existence, but a harmonious dancer in the dance of life. Chapter 5. Letting go of control, trust in the Tao and the natural process. It's time to delve into one of the most liberating yet challenging aspects of Wu Wei, the ability to let go of control. In a society that values exhaustive planning and meticulous management, the idea of surrendering control might sound like negligence or a dangerous lack of responsibility. However, Lao Tzu teaches us that true power and deep peace are often found by trusting the Tao, the natural process of the universe, and by detaching ourselves from the need to control every outcome. Our innate tendency, often reinforced by culture, is to try to control every aspect of our lives, how others behave, how events unfold, what the future should be like. We believe that by exerting ironclad control, we can guarantee desired results and avoid suffering. But this pursuit of absolute control is an illusion and an inexhaustible source of anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion. When we try to impose our will on what we cannot control, we find ourselves in a constant battle against reality. It's like a child throwing a tantrum, trying to force the sun to rise earlier or the rain to stop. The tantrum only exhausts the child, while nature follows its immutable course. Wu Wei invites us to a deeper understanding. It's not about not having goals or not taking action. It's about letting go of control over the outcome. Once we've done everything in our power, it's the trust that the universe, life, or the Tao has an intrinsic intelligence that operates through natural processes. By aligning ourselves with this flow, we allow things to unfold in the most optimal way, often exceeding our own rigid expectations. Think of the example of a potter. He doesn't control how the clay becomes a vessel. He controls the process, how he kneads the clay, how he centers it on the wheel, how he molds it with his expert hands. But then, he must let go of control and trust the drying and firing process in the kiln. If he tried to force the drying or firing, the vessel would crack. Mastery lies in the ability to control the controllable and let go of the uncontrollable, trusting that the rest of the process will follow its natural course. Trust in the Tao, an act of power. Letting go of control is an act of deep trust in the Tao. The Tao is the universal way, the principle of order that allows the sun to rise, the seasons to change, rivers to flow, and seeds to germinate. It is an intelligence that operates without visible effort. When we trust this flow, our anxiety decreases, and our energy, which was previously spent in resistance and worry, is freed up to be used more productively and creatively. This trust is not blind passivity. It is a deep knowledge of the limits of our control and a faith in life's ability to unfold. It's like an experienced navigator who doesn't fight against ocean currents but studies them and uses them to bring their ship to port. They know the laws of the sea and trust them. Practices for letting go of control and cultivating trust. Observe your resistance. The next time you feel frustrated, anxious, or stressed by a situation, stop. Ask yourself, am I trying to control something that is beyond my power? Am I resisting reality as it is? Resistance is a clear sign that you are trying to force an outcome. Moderate your rigid expectations. Often, frustration arises because reality doesn't match our expectations. Learn to have preferences instead of absolute demands about how things should be. I prefer the project to turn out perfectly, but if problems arise, I will adapt. The do your part and let go. Exercise. For each goal you have, clearly identify what actions are within your power. Planning, striving, learning, communicating. Perform those actions with excellence. Once you have done your part, consciously practice letting go of attachment to the specific outcome. Trust that the natural process will take over. Imagine planting a seed. You plant it, you water it, but you cannot force it to grow. You trust in nature. Accept uncertainty. Life is inherently uncertain. Control is an illusion. Trust in the Tao implies embracing uncertainty as a natural part of existence. Train your mind to be comfortable with the unknown, knowing that life always finds a way. Practice meditation and mindfulness. Meditation and mindfulness train you to observe your thoughts and emotions without clinging to them. This allows you to notice your impulse to control and then gently release it, returning to the present moment. It helps you differentiate impulsive action from aligned action. Observe the rhythm of nature. Spend time in nature. Observe how trees grow effortlessly, how animals move gracefully, how seasons change without resistance. Nature is a great teacher of Wu Wei and of letting go of control. Letting go of control does not mean being irresponsible or passive. On the contrary, it is a form of ultimate responsibility. It means taking responsibility for your own actions and attitudes, the controllable, and letting go of anxiety about results, the uncontrollable. By doing so, you align yourself with the natural flow of life, and you discover that effectiveness and peace are not opposed to effort, but rather arise from a different kind of effort, an aligned, intelligent, and frictionless effort. It is the art of achieving your desires without struggle, allowing life to work in your favor. Chapter 6. The Utility of Emptiness, the space for creation and clarity. In a culture that urges us to fill every moment, every space with activity, information, or possessions, the idea that emptiness can be useful or even essential seems counterintuitive. However, Lao Tzu reveals to us that nothingness is in fact what allows everything to function, exist, and have meaning. Think of everyday objects, a cup for example. Its value does not lie in the ceramic or glass from which it is made, but in the empty space it contains. It is that hollow space that allows it to hold tea, coffee, or any liquid, thus fulfilling its purpose. If it were completely solid, it would be useless. Similarly, a room is only useful for the empty space its walls enclose, allowing us to breathe, move, and inhabit it. A window is not functional because of the glass, but because of the transparent space that allows light and views to pass through. The spokes of a wheel are important, but it is the emptiness between them that allows rotation and movement. Even a flute produces beautiful melodies, not because of the solid material, but because of the hollow space inside and the holes that allow the air to resonate. In all these examples, functionality, utility, and intrinsic value do not reside solely in the presence of matter, but in the presence of emptiness, of space, of the absence that enables action, containment, or perception. Nothingness is, in essence, what gives meaning and purpose to something. Emptiness in your life, a space to breathe, create, and be. If emptiness is so fundamental in the physical world, its implications in our mental and emotional lives are even deeper. In our era, constant stimulation and noise have become the norm. We fill every minute with screens, notifications, conversations, to-do lists, and incessant multitasking. But when was the last time you allowed yourself true silence? And I don't mean just the absence of external noise, but the silence of the mind, that pause in the constant inner chatter. The power of silence and mental stillness. It is in silence and mental stillness where the mind can truly clear. It is there that creativity can spontaneously emerge, where solutions to complex problems can reveal themselves with astonishing clarity, and where intuition can speak without interruption. Silence is not merely an absence of sound, it is the presence of possibility. It is a fertile space to listen to your deepest inner voice, to process your experiences without distortion, and to connect with a wisdom that transcends logic. Just as an already full cup cannot receive more liquid, a mind constantly filled with noise and distractions cannot receive new ideas, inspirations, or intuitions. We need emptiness for receptivity. The utility of space in your schedule. Our society relentlessly pushes us to fill every minute of our day with activities. We schedule our lives to the point of suffocation, believing that being busy is synonymous with being productive. However, the Tao reminds us of the vital importance of empty spaces in your schedule, of those moments of apparent inactivity, these instants of stillness, an aimless walk, thoughtfully gazing out the window, doing nothing else, simply being without an immediate purpose, are not wasted time. They are the essential moments that allow your ideas to settle and mature, your energy to recharge, your nervous system to rest, and inspiration or clarity to find you, instead of you having to tirelessly chase it. Real and sustainable productivity is not measured solely by work hours or completed tasks, but by the quality of moments when you allow your mind and body to rest, regenerate, and reconnect. Without these spaces of emptiness, you become exhausted, your creativity diminishes, and your discernment capacity is clouded. Emptiness in interpersonal relationships. In our interactions, we often try to fill every moment with conversation, advice, or expectations. However, space, the emptiness in a relationship, is vital for its health and growth. This means giving freedom to the other, respecting their individuality and personal space, allowing them to grow and evolve at their own pace without the need to control them or to fill their emptiness with your own ideas. It also means the ability to listen deeply and with full presence, leaving space for the other to express themselves completely without interruptions or judgments. It is in that space of unconditional acceptance and freedom where true, meaningful, and lasting connections can flourish and deepen. Emptiness in creation and innovation. For an artist, a writer, a musician, a scientist, or any innovator, emptiness is not a terrifying threat, but a blank canvas of unlimited potential. Before a sculpture takes shape, there is an inert block of stone. Before a symphony resonates, there is silence. It is in that apparent nothingness that the infinite possibility of creating something new, original, and truly meaningful resides. Often, in our eagerness to produce and our fear of blocks, we resist that moment of creative emptiness. But by embracing it, by allowing ourselves that fertile stillness, by trusting that ideas will emerge, we open the door wide to genuine inspiration and revolutionary innovation. It is an act of faith in the inherent potential of emptiness. Cultivating inner emptiness, an act of fullness. Integrating the utility of emptiness into your life is not an esoteric exercise. It is a practical and transformative path toward greater inner peace, deeper effectiveness, and a fuller life. This involves a series of practices and habit changes. Practice intentional daily. Silence. Dedicate a few minutes each day to simply be in silence without a specific purpose. Turn off screens, silence external noise, and allow your mind to calm. Do not try to do anything with that silence, just experience it. If thoughts arise, observe them without judging and let them pass, returning your attention to stillness. Create empty spaces in your schedule. Consciously and deliberately, block out moments in your day or week to do nothing specific. Allow yourself to wander aimlessly, sit in a park to observe, daydream, or simply sit in stillness in your home. These are not lost moments. They are moments of incubation for your well-being, your creativity, and your mental clarity. Listen without filling the space. In your conversations, practice listening to the other without the immediate need to respond, advise, or judge. Allow silence to be a natural part of the interaction, giving the other person space to express themselves completely, to find their own words, and to feel truly heard. Embrace the unknown and uncertainty. Life often presents us with gaps in information or uncertain situations. Instead of panicking about filling those gaps with conjectures, fears, or rigid plans, cultivate patience and trust. The unknown space also contains unlimited potential, yet to be revealed possibilities, and unexpected revelations. When you embrace emptiness, you do not become empty yourself. On the contrary, you become fuller, more receptive, and more connected with the essence of life. You discover that life is not just about accumulating and doing, but also about letting go, allowing and finding profound richness in apparent nothingness. Space and silence become powerful allies on your journey through the Tao, allowing you to listen more deeply to your inner wisdom, see the reality of things with greater clarity, and act with a wisdom born from stillness and understanding. This is the true art of effortless effectiveness. Chapter 7. Wu Wei and Personal Development, Authentic Power Without Struggle. Wu Wei is not just a strategy for achieving goals, it is a path to flourishing and true inner freedom. In our culture, we often equate personal willpower with iron will, the ability to dominate others, or the skill to overcome obstacles with pure tenacity. While these qualities have their place, Wu Wei presents a more subtle and sustainable vision of power, the ability to be who you truly are, effortlessly, and to allow your energy to flow freely without the friction of inner resistance. Authenticity and self-acceptance through natural flow. When you apply Wu Wei to your personal development, you invite yourself to release the need to be someone you are not. Just as water takes the shape of the container that holds it without ceasing to be water, you can adapt to circumstances without losing your essence. This implies accepting your strengths and weaknesses, your light and your shadows, without trying to force yourself into a mold that is not authentic for you. The struggle to be perfect or to meet external expectations is an immense source of stress and exhaustion. By flowing with your own nature, you become more genuine, more coherent with yourself, and that authenticity radiates a calm and magnetic power that does not need external validation. It is the freedom to be, without pretenses. Reduction of stress and anxiety from forced effort. One of the greatest blessings of Wu Wei is the drastic reduction of stress and anxiety. Much of our anguish comes from trying to control the uncontrollable or forcing results. When we adopt the mindset of action without forced effort, we release that burden. We no longer feel obligated to fight against the tides of life, but learn to navigate with them. This alignment with the natural flow of the universe and our own internal energies allows us to conserve an immense amount of vitality that was previously dissipated in worry and resistance. Stress becomes a signal to check if we are trying to force something instead of flowing. Increase in vitality and energy. When you stop fighting yourself, others, or circumstances, the energy that was previously spent in that friction is released and redirected. This liberated energy manifests as a notable increase in your physical, mental, and emotional vitality. You feel less exhausted, more present, and more enthusiastic. It is like a dam that has been released, allowing water to flow freely, generating power instead of containing it. Wu Wei action is inherently efficient. You achieve more with less wear, which leaves you with a greater reserve of energy to enjoy life and pursue your passions, inner peace and unwavering harmony. The ultimate goal of Taoism is harmony with the Tao, and this translates into deep inner peace. When your actions, your thoughts, and your emotions are in alignment with the natural flow of existence, when there is no inner resistance, you experience a serenity that cannot be disturbed by external circumstances. This peace is not the absence of problems, but the ability to face them calmly and wisely, knowing that you are acting from a place of alignment. Life becomes a dance, not a battle. The harmony you cultivate with the universe is reflected in the harmony within yourself. The paradoxical power of non-struggle. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of Wu Wei. It seems that by not struggling, we lose control. But in fact, by stopping the fight against what we cannot control, we gain immense control over what we can control, our own response, our attitude, and our peace of mind. The great masters of Wu Wei are not weak. They are extraordinarily powerful, but their power is fluid, adaptable, and non-aggressive. It is the power of water that wears away stone, of the bamboo reed that bends with the wind, of the emptiness that allows function. It is a power that attracts, not imposes. This authentic power allows you to influence the world without having to dominate it. By integrating Wu Wei into your personal development, you open yourself to a way of life where authenticity is your strength, peace your natural state, and effectiveness a consequence of your alignment. You stop living in a state of internal and external war and immerse yourself in an existence where effort dissolves into flow and achievement becomes a natural manifestation of your harmonized being. This is the path to personal power that does not need external validation because it emanates from the totality of your being. Chapter 8. Challenges and misunderstandings of Wu Wei, avoiding the traps. The line between aligned effortless action and simple passivity or irresponsibility can be very thin if not understood and practiced with discernment. This chapter will guide you through the most common challenges and fatal errors when trying to apply Wu Wei, helping you avoid traps and walk this path with wisdom. The biggest misunderstanding of Wu Wei is to confuse it with inaction or laziness. As we have emphasized, Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. In fact, it often involves intense action, but that action is so perfectly aligned with the natural flow of life, so free of resistance and friction, that it seems effortless. A lazy person avoids work. A person who practices Wu Wei immerses themselves in work, but does so with an efficiency and fluidity that avoids unnecessary wear and tear. Trap 1. Passivity disguised as Wu Wei. Many people, upon hearing about doing nothing, interpret this as an excuse for passivity. They sit, wait for things to happen on their own, and blame the Tao when their goals do not materialize. This is not Wu Wei. It is inactive fatalism. Error. Crossing your arms and waiting for the universe to provide without taking any initiative or concrete action. Avoiding responsibilities or procrastinating important tasks under the excuse of just flowing. Reality of Wu Wei. Wu Wei requires deep observation, discernment, and, crucially, taking timely and aligned action. A sailboat constantly adjusts its sails to take advantage of the wind. It does not stay in port waiting for the wind to propel it effortlessly. A gardener prepares the soil and waters the seeds. They do not sit and wait for the harvest to sprout magically. The action that arises from Wu Wei is precise, powerful, and effective, not absent. If your non-doing comes from fear, indecision, or procrastination, it is not Wu Wei. It is disguised resistance. Trap 2. Irresponsibility under the cloak of acceptance. Another common mistake is to confuse stoic acceptance, or trust in the Tao, with irresponsibility. Stoic acceptance of the inevitable does not mean that we should not strive to improve things within our circle of control. Error. Justifying lack of planning, neglecting responsibilities, or negligence under the premise of accepting whatever comes or flowing with the universe. For example, not paying bills on time and then saying, "I accept the consequence." This is not wisdom. It is imprudence. Reality of Wu Wei. Wu Wei operates within the framework of responsibility. Effortless action refers to the quality of effort, not the absence of responsibility. The Wu Wei doctor diagnoses and treats with precision, but lets go of attachment to the final result of the patient's healing, which is beyond their control. A Wu Wei leader plans diligently and leads with purpose, but adapts fluidly to unforeseen changes. We cannot control the outcome, but we can control the quality and ethics of our effort. Acceptance comes after diligently doing everything in your power. Trap 3. The search for magical shortcuts and superficiality. Due to its paradoxical nature, Wu Wei is sometimes perceived as a quick fix or a shortcut to circumvent hard work. Error. Expecting Wu Wei to solve all problems instantly without the need for discipline, study, or effort. Treating the concept as a magic formula instead of a deep philosophy of life. Reducing it to empty affirmations without conscious application. Reality of Wu Wei. Wu Wei is the result of deep and constant practice. It requires acute self-awareness, significant mental discipline, and a profound understanding of Taoist principles. It is the result of training the mind to observe the flow, to let go of the ego that wants to control, and to act with wisdom. The apparent mastery of Wu Wei is only achieved after years of effortless effort, that is, aligned and conscious effort. It is the fruit of discipline, not its substitute. Trap 4. The confusion between detachment and disinterest. Wu Wei implies letting go of rigid attachment to results, but it does not mean becoming indifferent or disinterested in your goals or people. Error. Adopting an attitude of apathy, cynicism, or lack of passion toward life or your relationships, thinking that this is detachment. For example, not striving for an important relationship because I'll just flow with whatever happens. Reality of Wu Wei. Wu Wei arises from a burning desire for a purpose, a passion for life, and a commitment to virtuous action. You detach from the specific outcome, yes, but not from the purpose or the process. In fact, by being less attached to the outcome, you can more fully enjoy the process and act with greater freedom and creativity. You free yourself from the anxiety of the outcome so you can invest more fully in the effort. Your commitment becomes purer and less conditional. Trap 5. Trying to do Wu Wei. The paradox of Wu Wei is that you cannot do Wu Wei consciously and forcedly. Rather, it is a state of being that arises from alignment. Error. Trying to apply Wu Wei as if it were a mechanical technique, following a rigid checklist. This creates tension and, paradoxically, more effort. Reality of Wu Wei. It is a state that is cultivated. It is reached through the practice of observation, acceptance, releasing resistance, and trusting in the natural flow. It is more a allowing than a doing. It's like trying to force relaxation. The harder you try, the less you relax. Relaxation comes when you let go of the effort to control it. Wu Wei arises when you stop trying to force it and align with the intelligence of the Tao. How to distinguish true Wu Wei and avoid the traps. Ask about the quality of your energy. The clearest sign of true Wu Wei is the quality of energy you feel when acting. If you feel calm, centered, light, and effective, you are likely in Wu Wei. If you feel tense, exhausted, frustrated, or like you're pushing a rock uphill, you're likely in forced action. Observe long-term results. Forced action can yield short-term results but often leads to exhaustion, resistance, and collateral problems. True Wu Wei leads to sustainable results, inner peace, and progress that feels natural and organic. Cultivate self-awareness. The key to avoiding these traps is constant self-observation. Be honest with yourself about your motivations. Are you truly flowing, or are you justifying yourself to avoid a challenge? Does your non-doing arise from wisdom or laziness? Recognize the natural flow. Spend time in nature. Observe how everything works without apparent effort. This helps you tune into the rhythm of the Tao and apply that same understanding to your own actions. Learn from your mistakes. We will all make mistakes when applying Wu Wei, falling into passivity or forced action. Don't judge yourself harshly. Learn from the experience, adjust your approach, and continue practicing with greater awareness. Wu Wei is not a panacea that exempts you from effort, but a profound wisdom that teaches you to channel your effort in the most intelligent, effective, and harmonious way possible. It is the path to mastery where action and inaction perfectly intertwine, leading you to achieve your goals with an effectiveness that seems effortless and to live a life of deep peace and alignment. By recognizing and avoiding these common traps, you will be able to walk the path of Wu Wei with greater confidence and clarity, unveiling its true transformative power. We've reached the end of this profound journey into the heart of the Tao and the secret of Wu Wei. We've unveiled Lao Tzu's paradox, understanding that achieving everything without effort isn't a fantasy of inaction, but a form of mastery that arises from alignment with life's natural flow. We learned from the timeless wisdom of water, which taught us strength in flexibility, gentle persistence, and adaptability in the face of obstacles. We adopted the gardener's mindset, which nurtures conditions and trusts the growth process instead of forcing results. We explored how to apply Wu Wei in our daily lives, discovering the effectiveness that emerges when our actions are free of unnecessary friction and resistance. We dared to let go of control, trusting the intelligence of the Tao, and embrace the utility of emptiness, finding an inexhaustible source of creativity and clarity in space and silence. Finally, we saw how Wu Wei is a direct path to personal development, revealing authentic power that arises not from struggle, but from coherence and inner peace, and we learned to avoid the traps that confuse Wu Wei with passivity. Life, in its essence, is a constant flow, an uninterrupted dance of change. Wu Wei doesn't ask you to fight against that dance, but to learn its steps, to move with it, to become one with its rhythm. By integrating Wu Wei into your being, you free yourself from the tension of control, the anxiety of outcomes, and the exhaustion of useless effort. You open yourself to a way of living where action is more potent because it's more conscious, where peace is a natural state, and where achievement becomes a fluid manifestation of your aligned self. This audiobook is your invitation to practice the art of non-resistance, to become a master of flow in your own life. The path of Wu Wei is a journey of continuous transformation, a promise to achieve everything by letting go of struggle, by allowing life to work through you and in your favor. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the wisdom of the Tao and for sharing your time in this space of calm. If this audiobook resonated with you and brought value to your life, we invite you to be part of our community at Path of Knowledge. Your support allows us to continue exploring and sharing these timeless teachings. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future guides and reflections. If this content was meaningful to you, please give it a like and share it with those you believe the wisdom of Wu Wei could benefit. See you next time.